Hi guys, good evening. I hope you're doing well tonight. This is going to be the second in a line of videos that I've been wanting to do for a while, addressing various questions that people have asked me that I have never really gotten around to answering. I've been going and working on my health stuff for a while now, and so I decided that I wanted to bang out these side projects while I can bang out these side projects. I've been kind of shoving it off for a while now, and so people have a tendency to ask these, and I have a tendency to kind of sweep it under the rug because I always feel like I'm never really able to answer it in a coherent fashion because, well, I'm feeling like shit. So I am feeling relatively reasonable and stuff, so I decided to bang out a lot of these side projects. I'm not sure how many videos are going to be. I know that they're going to be placed in the mental health playlist most likely as I go and go about addressing these. So let's go ahead and get started. One of the more common questions that I get asked from people overseas, both my friends and just random folks on the internet, is what is medical like in America? Because I spend a lot of time in medical services just going and getting things handled. And so, well, to be honest with you, it's really not that great. I find that a lot of medicine in America is extremely predatory, for lack of a better term, definitely profit-driven in some regards, and it's been in a state of decay for like a while now. So I'm going to be talking about my experience with it and stuff, various things that I notice. Decided that this recording is going to be paired up with another Resident Evil long play because I just haven't had any sort of desire to go and record fresh footage. So let's go ahead and get into it. Thank you all for attending so far. Medical in this country is actually quite bad. Anybody that knows me knows that I've been having very severe medical issues since about my late 20s, with me being in my 30s and stuff. The journey's been going on for quite some time. Long story short, I have a bunch of genetic issues that have left me open to a wide array of diseases, most of them inflammatory in nature. So I find that the biggest issue with services in America is not generally going and acquiring them, although that is a very big problem in its own right, with as expensive as it is and with as bad as insurance is and various safety net issues in America and everything else. I find that while I'm able to go and get services, I find that the quality is quite bad most of the time. So my body, long story short, is falling apart. The inflammatory processes in my body are so bad that basically my entire spine from like my C2 all the way down is very heavily compressed. A lot of stenosis. So a consequence of this is basically my heart kind of flip-flops around. I've got blood pressure issues and a whole smorgasbord of other things that I will not be getting into because I will be here all night talking about it. So, as any other human being, I decided that I kind of wanted to go and survive it, more or less. I was like, okay, I want to take, better care of myself and everything else. And so, as a consequence of this, I have a tendency to see a lot of specialists, as well as my GP and everything else. My medical life has a tendency to keep me very busy. My mental health life is a completely different monster. It also keeps me very, very busy as well, so I'm relatively high maintenance in that regard. A lot of medical in America scares the hell out of me. It's not generally the price, although the price compared to other countries is fucking awful. It's mainly the conduct of how everything from surgeons to GPs to nurses behave as. And so in order to keep my body running, I am subjected to surgeries quite frequently. I've had surgeries on pretty much everything. We're finally getting around to my back because it's eroded so much, but I've had heavy amounts of surgery on both my knees, on both of my feet. I had my left elbow and my left wrist done a while back because the joints are eroding so heavily and it's starting to put pressure on the nerves, and you know, it's just been kind of non-stop because inflammation is just destroying me all over the damn place. I've had to have my veins worked on because the inflammation is so bad that it'll literally close a vein off, cause it to collapse, and then they're like, yeah, you know, if we don't remove this, this is going to get worse. So I've had vein stripping and just a ton of surgery. So, most of the time when I'm in public, I am always trying to be incredibly kind to everybody that I run across. It's not always easy, but I feel it's what people deserve. So I just kind of sit there and it's like, oh, okay, well, let's just do our best, and whatever happens, happens. You know, like, I don't go out of my way to try to prove myself to anybody, and if somebody is normally pretty rude, then I have a tendency to handle it with a certain degree of tact and grace. I find that most of the doctors here in America are fucking awful. And I don't mean like their workmanship or anything. Like, if I go and I have a surgeon and stuff, a lot of the time the work is actually very high quality with minimal scarring and things like that. The big issue that I have is most medical personnel here in America have really bad mannerisms. Most of the doctors that I have had the displeasure of working with behave like they're gods. Like, they literally kind of hold themselves up on a pedestal, and I think that's largely a societal discrepancy. So, for example, I recently was down at Tucson Orthopedic having my wrist and my elbow worked on, and the surgeon that had seen me at the time was like, oh, okay, we're going to go ahead, and when you go to have the next stage of your surgery, you know, I'll go ahead, pop in. We'll go ahead, get it, you know, completely taken care of. You'll be in and out, and then like 2 weeks later, you'll be back. We'll go ahead and remove your stitches. So I said, yeah, okay. We went to go and do the surgery, and he had walked in with, well, to be honest with you, he had coke on his upper lip. It pretty much jarred everybody. You know, like, I don't really care, in all honesty, if somebody has, like, drug issues or not. What they choose to do with themselves is entirely, you know, on them. You know, that's the choice they make, more or less. But I'm a very firm believer that even when I was drinking, like, 24/7, I would not show up to any form of employment that I had at the time completely smashed out of my mind. I would always try to leave my habits at home. So it was very strange. We wound up going and canceling the surgery because the guy was literally blitzed out of his mind. And at the time, they were like, we have another surgeon that can handle this, not a problem, we are so sorry. Well, at the time I decided to file a complaint, and I said, okay, not a problem, let's go ahead and file a complaint about this because this is not okay. This is a man who is going and doing surgery on myself and others. Thank God he didn't do surgery on me. You know, it is a direct risk to other people. Something bad can happen to them, so it's best to literally go and just file the complaint and go from there. I went ahead, I had filed my complaint, and the person taking the complaint was like, oh, you know, this is very interesting, like the standard kind of canned shit that you would expect to hear from somebody that works in a department like that. And so it more or less just kind of came and went. Nothing was done. Dude still has a job. Personally, I wouldn't hire somebody that shows up to the job blitzed out of their mind on drugs, but that's just me. I had finally had the surgery done over at TMC. And at the time, I was told that they were just going to numb the area locally, and that, you know, when I woke up, I would probably be in a fair bit of pain. I was having my wrist worked on for carpal tunnel, so there was an incision from like the center of my palm all the way down past my wrist and stuff so they could go and do a tendon release. And then I had ulnar compression from joint degradation, and that left me with an incision from like halfway down my forearm all the way up to my upper arm, and then, you know, of course, I was sutured shut. When I awoke, I was completely unaware that I could not feel my left at all. They had decided to install a nerve block instead because apparently shit was just so messy in there that they were like, yeah, we're going to want to give this broad a nerve block. So when I woke up, I was actually greeted by a very pissy nurse who was just kind of sitting there, and I have a tendency to be very warm with people. I use like a lot of pleasantries and stuff. I don't really care for small talk too much, but I use a lot of pleasantries, especially if I'm relaxed, because when I'm relaxed, you know, naturally I want everybody else to be relaxed as well. You know, I don't really like being an asshole unless I absolutely have to, and even then I don't really enjoy it that much, you know. So I had come to, she was sitting there, and I was unaware that my entire left arm was numb from like a little bit below my shoulder down. Well, my arm decided that it wanted to start going and moving and wiggling around and stuff, like flexing the joint, trying to see if it could actually feel anything. From what I understand, this is a relatively common phenomena, and it, you know, everybody experiences it to a certain lesser degree. I'm legally blind. I can't read most people's name tags, so as a way of showing that I am, you know, comfortable with them and that I'm not being hostile towards them, I have a tendency to say, hey hon, how you doing? Or hey bud, how you doing? If I'm dealing with a child, I'll be like, hey kiddo, how you doing? You know, because that's more or less how I was raised. You know, like everybody in my neighborhood talks like that, everybody in my family talks like that. Men, women, people in between, pretty much all of us. And so I don't really think too much of it. I asked her how she was doing. I said, hey hon, how you doing? And immediately she had thrown a bitch fit about it and said that her name is Liz, apparently, and she had asked me if I knew how to read. I had explained to her that I used to be able to read very well and that I'm legally blind, and she had gotten incredibly pissy about it. And so I had gotten up. I had a slight hangover from getting knocked out. The gas that they use on you is just really fucking insane sometimes, and every time I've had surgery where they've had to render me completely unconscious, I've always kind of woken up with a chronic raging migraine. And so I was already feeling like shit. Still not aware that my arm was like flexing and grabbing around on its own and stuff, and so she was like, you need to stop. I thought it was in reference to my language habit at first, so I just kind of stopped talking, and she was like, well, you need to stop. If you do not stop, I will break your arm. And I sat there and I was like, hold the fuck up. You know, this is not okay. And so it took me a hot minute to realize that my arm was like moving around more or less. I said, oh, holy shit, it's actually moving, you know, and I kind of laughed at it a little bit. And I flat out told her I had no idea that they had numbed me up and stuff, but after seeing the stitch work that they had put on me, I was like, oh man, I'm grateful they did, you know. And I was trying to be friendly towards this woman, and she just wasn't really having it. She insisted on complaining about how she was supposed to be on break and how she didn't want to be here and like all this other stuff. And so I said, hey hon, it's not a problem. I'm doing all right. If you want to, you know, go and take your break, go and take your break. I'm not going to keep you from it, especially if you've been working hard and everything else. And so she had bitched about my mannerisms some more, and then bitched about me moving my arm. And so it's really weird because when you can't really feel anything, I think it's like natural reflex to try to wiggle it. At least when I was a kid and my legs would like go numb sitting in really oddball positions, my feet would do that. So it kind of made sense why my arm was doing it. I didn't really think too much of it. And so for 20 minutes afterwards, she had explained to me how exactly she hated everything, and it was just really, really awful to go and deal with. And so I went ahead and I was like, oh, Jesus Christ, you know, and she had eventually gotten so fed up that she had left my bedside and stuff, gone over to the nurse's station. My mom at the time was wondering how I was doing because the surgery was rather large and stuff. My arm was swollen up like a fucking balloon. And so the woman was literally sitting there saying she had gotten pissed with my mom, and she said, we're at the still saying stupid things stage. And My mom didn't really care for that too much. I mean, I didn't really think too much of it. I was like, ah, yes, she's kind of being a little bit of a cunt, but, you know, you're gonna run into people like this. Eventually she had come back and she had started lecturing me about how I was making her day worse, and eventually I'd gotten annoyed with it, and I said, well, if you don't want to be here, that's fine, you're more than welcome to leave. I'm not gonna, you know, feel bad for being myself. I feel that everybody should be able to go and be themselves. We all come as we are, and, you know, that's okay. I'm not going to set myself on fire to appease you. And her ego at that point had taken a hit. So she finally got pissed off enough to leave. And I said, okay, you know, we're gonna get up and try to move around. I don't really like to be stationary for very long. It's a very weird thing for me, so I like to get up and move a little bit after surgery. I like to get the blood pumping, because after surgery I'm always, like, really fucking cold for some reason. And I'm always, like, really hungry on top of it, which is kind of odd as well. So she had left. They eventually, I wound up leaving the hospital like an hour and a half late, because they had forgotten about me, essentially, and they had finally fetched a wheelchair for some reason, even though I was, like, perfectly capable of walking on my own. You know, I had my arm worked on, not my legs. And, you know, I had left. I had filed a complaint the following day. I explained to the woman, I was like, it's not okay for nurses to threaten people. And, like, I don't know if she was having a bad day or whatever the case may be, but, you know, this is just simply not okay. And so I was told that apparently it was an ongoing problem, and that they were short-staffed, and that it was very unlikely that anything was going to be done, you know, and it was just kind of soul-crushing, because I can understand being upset with somebody if they're hostile towards you, right? Like, you're kind of just sitting there, and you're like, oh, okay, you know, this kind of sucks a little bit, so you know, I just don't want to deal with it. But when you have somebody that is trying to be kind towards you and, you know, treat you as they would want to be treated, to go and attack them like that is really, really just kind of obnoxious, you know. So I didn't really care for it too much. As time has gone on, I find that nurses have a lot of entitlement. A lot of them will bitch just for the sake of bitching. I learned very quickly that it did not really matter how kind I was or how mean I was about things, you know, they would whine for the sake of whining. A consequence of this is now when I go and deal with medical staff in general, I have a tendency to just not really give a shit on how I treat them. And it wasn't intentional. Like, I didn't just wake up one day and say, hey, you know, these people are fucking awful. It's just something that has happened over time as I experience it over and over again. So I find that a lot of nurses will go and be completely awful to other nurses. There's been instances where I've heard nurses joking about somebody's suicide attempt, you know, in a hallway, just casually talking about it. And I find it to be some truly repugnant shit. You know, and like when you go and you call them out, you know, it's treated as an open hostility. Instead of going and exercising some common sense and saying, hey, you know, suicide is not okay. There's no real reason for me to be going and talking about this or, you know, joking about it, whatever the case may be. You know, instead of having some level of accountability, you know, they're like, our lives are so hard and we sacrifice so much and people, you know, treat us like shit. Like, I find a lot of nurses will go and openly whine, bitch, and moan about patients while simultaneously going and dodging their own accountability, and it's just really fucking obnoxious. I find that there's a lot of issues with nursing and stuff, and I'm not really much of a fan of any of them. Like, I've had some instances where nurses will literally go and try to destroy other nurses, and it's normally the older ones attacking the younger ones. I've had instances where doctors will come in and they will treat nurses like shit and run them into the ground, and, you know, that's not okay. I've had other instances where I've literally had nurses arguing in front of me over some really fucking stupid shit. You know, like, the amount of lateral violence that goes on in healthcare is fucking insane. So, when you bring these things up, I notice that a lot of nurses don't really want to go and address this. Most nurses, when they go on TikTok and stuff, or, you know, maybe you have a personal experience with it, they'll go and they'll bitch about patients all the time. They'll sit there and say, oh, you know, patients are the worst, and, you know, I've experienced X, Y, and Z, but I find that the number is disproportionate. I have no doubt in my mind that nurses are subjected to violence on the regular. That's not okay. I'm also a very firm believer that if somebody is violent towards medical staff, that they should be held accountable, escorted from the building. You know, we do need security from these people, but at the same time, it really makes no sense to literally place all of your problems on just your patients, more or less. You know, yes, patients can be an issue, especially those with mental health issues and stuff, but a lot of nurses don't really realize, hey, these people are mentally ill. You know, not everybody's going to be in their right mind. Most people that go to ERs aren't really going to be in their right mind anyways, because an ER is a high-stress environment. And so I find that the lack of accountability with a lot of nurses has kind of caused me to lose damn near all respect for them. I have relatives that are nurses. They largely, as far as I can tell, do not behave like this. But to be fair, all of my relatives that are nurses are also really fucking old. You know, they're not young. This is mainly a thing I see with, like, a lot of younger nurses. So I find that most nurses don't want to address things like poor pay, how doctors go and treat them. They don't really want to talk about things like lateral violence. You know, they don't really want to actually go and tackle the issue. They just kind of want to go treat people like shit. Get on, talk about how awful most of their patients are, you know, bitch about how their quality of life is so poor and everything else, but they don't really actually want to talk about, you know, going about remedying the issue. They don't want to talk about nurses doing atrocious things. There was, the last time I had landed myself in the ER, there was a nurse who was bragging about giving somebody extra sedative to shut them up. I was completely and utterly fucking floored, and then when I had spoken out about it, I was like, hey, that's not okay. Can I have your name, please? She had just shut the door, more or less. And so a lot of what happens in the medical field scares the shit out of me. It's mainly the conduct of a lot of the people that work within it. I find that most people in the medical field are, well, they've got some serious fucking screws loose, for the most part. At first I thought it was just a consequence of working in this field for an extended period of time. You spend an enormous amount of time in any field, it's going to drive you batshit past a certain point, I believe, but I firmly believe that there is a specific type of person that is naturally drawn to this type of work, especially like surgeons and stuff. Most of the people that I have seen kind of fall into the, I already have mental health issues, I'm going to try to get a job to blend in with it, that way I don't really look quite as batshit crazy. Like, there was one nurse that was going and bragging about how a patient had died on the floor, and she was glad that that patient is dead, because that patient is no longer making noise that aggravates her. When you hear things like this, it makes it incredibly hard to go and respect the profession, right? Like, if I'm in a back room somewhere, and I have, like, my leg torn off, and I'm waiting to see somebody, this is not the kind of shit you want to hear, really. So as an end result, with most of my experiences with nurses being overwhelmingly negative, I have a very hard time respecting anybody that chose nursing as a profession these days. Like, I am instantly weary of them. It is nothing personal, it's just when you see enough fucked up shit happen, you just eventually learn to not trust it, essentially. Like, now when people brag about going and working in the healthcare industry, I wonder two things. How much do you hate yourself, and what kind of mental health issues do you have already? So it's really kind of a polarizing thing. I've had another incident where we at the time did not know that my cervical was incredibly unstable, and it was putting pressure on my brainstem because it was like digging into it a little bit. And so as an end result, I was randomly passing out. I went ahead, made the trek to the ER down in Bisbee. You know, my family had decided to take me and stuff because I was randomly blacking out. The blacking out had been going on for almost a year at that point, and it was starting to scare the hell out of everybody because I would black out when hiking. I would go and my heart would crash going and doing very simple, basic things, and we didn't know that it was like the spinal cord. My ears were also killing me as well, but that was nerve pressure and nerve inflammation on top of it from everything going on. I was taken down, and on the way down, I had passed out in the truck that I was in. It is very unusual for these things to go and happen to me. I'm not really one to nap. Like, I'll go and I'll try to sleep, but once I'm up, I am up. More or less. It is incredibly hard for me to get back to sleep. So apparently at some point on the way down to Bisbee, I had passed out in the truck. We had rolled up to the hospital, and apparently I was still passed out. Medical staff had to come and get me. When they had opened my side of the door, apparently the only thing holding my body in the truck was literally the seatbelt. They went ahead, slammed me in a wheelchair. Well, they didn't slam me per se, but, you know, they went ahead, slapped me in a wheelchair, and they had taken me inside. The care was actually quite bad. They went ahead, measured my heart, measured my blood a fair bit as well, and they had sent a doctor in at the time. And he was, from what I understand, this man was a little bit of a rock star. You know, he had gone over to Ukraine and stuff to administer medical services over there at the height of the war, more or less. And so everybody was like, you know, you're really brave for going and doing this, but I find that his conduct was lacking in the extreme. So I went ahead, and I didn't know that I had been experiencing a seizure at the time, and so I felt kind of hungover a little bit. Like, it's really weird. Like, when you come out of a seizure, it's not like, oh, you know, hey, you know, everything's back to normal. You kind of feel like you're drunk to a certain extent. And so I had come to, and I had no idea what the hell was going on. I was relatively confused with pretty much the entire situation. He had come in. We had talked about it for a while. I said, yeah, I've got X, Y, and Z going on, and I had explained to him that I had surgery, you know, the day before, and that I was, I had a follow-up coming up. Like, I'd pretty much gone over everything with him and stuff, so he just kind of sat there, nodded his head a little bit, and said that he would be right back, more or less. So he came back, and he was like, you know, did you come here with anybody? And I said, yeah, I had a family member go ahead and bring me up and stuff. They're still out there. Would you mind going and grabbing them? You know, it was still relatively hot outside, and, you know, sitting in a hot-ass truck just really isn't that great. The waiting room was slammed. There was nowhere for her to sit. So he had disappeared for a while, and I was like, okay, you know, this is just kind of strange. But he eventually did come back with my relative, and they were sitting there talking and stuff, and my mom had come in, and she had sat in the chair, and he had sat down as well, and he was like, I'm looking at a constellation of your symptoms, and it's very evident that all of this is caused by your BPD. My jaw had hit the floor, and I was just kind of like sitting there staring at him, because I had been living with BPD for so long at that point that I can identify what it causes, what it doesn't cause, things like that, you know, like the common sense shit. So I had sat there, my mouth was just kind of hanging open, and he goes, you know, you seem like a very smart kid. I think that you're up here because you're bored, and like he had basically reduced everything to a somatoform disorder. He's like, hey, we went ahead and looked at your ears, there's no inflammation in there, and, you know, there's nothing wrong. We're going to go ahead and discharge you because this is very evidently related to your mental health. So I said, oh, Jesus Christ, you know, like I was just so floored by it. So I had grabbed the bull by the horns, and I had just asked the question directly. I said, hey, do you think that I'm lying about this? Because I just wasn't really in the mood to sit there and humor it. And he goes, well, no, I don't think that, you're lying. I think it's a somatoform disorder, and I think that you're just bored. And I was like, bored with what? And he just kind of threw his hands in the air, and he's like, I just think that you're bored. I don't know with what. You need therapy and medication and like all this other stuff. And I had already admitted to him that I'm already in therapy. There's really no reason to blame it on that. And eventually he had gotten so annoyed that he had just gotten up and left. My mom and I had sat there for a while, and I had looked at her, and I was so shook by it that I was like, bored? Like I had sat there and I was like, are you fucking serious? And she goes, well, you are under a lot of stress. And I said, Mom, I had 2 other appointments that I had to be at today. I had to go and attend mental health, and then I had to do my my post-surgery checkup, more or less, because the surgery was looking like kind of weird, and so they were like, we want to do a follow-up just to be safe. My vascular surgeon was actually really good stuff like that. So I went ahead and, he was like, I'll go ahead and I'll give you some papers. And, your discharge stuff, and we'll go ahead and get you out of here. So I went home thinking that it was just mental health related and anxiety and somatoform and like all this other shit that he was not anywhere near qualified to go and diagnose. Well, it turns out that this is medical gaslighting. I had spoken to my mom about it. I said, yeah, it's kind of weird, you kind of took a while to get in here. Did you guys get lost? She had openly admitted to me at that point that he had gone and pulled her into his office on the side and asked if I was really blind. Now, a little bit of background. I am legally blind. We know what's causing it. It's a damaged visual cortex, retinal holes, a little bit of nerve damage. Like, my eyes have just kind of seen it, just like gone straight through it. And we know what's causing it. It's a very well-documented thing. Apparently he had taken time to go and pull her into his office to grill her about whether or not I was actually blind. And so keep in mind, with all this documentation, he proceeded to tell her, oh, well, I think that this person's full of shit. And yet we have tons and tons of imaging showing damage all over the place. And then, of course, we went ahead and had the EEG to see how my visual cortex was working and things like that. It got a very stupidly thorough workup. And I still hold on to all these records to this day because a lot of people, since I can navigate well, since I've learned how to go and thrive in the current environment with everybody else, a lot of people have a tendency to freak out. Now, there's some things I still can't do. Like, if I'm in a fresh place, it does take me a minute to actually go and map the place. But once I actually mental map it, I'm actually doing a lot better. I'm able to navigate around it easily, and I can detect most objects in front of me, even if it is about 4 feet away. It'll look like a heavy blur, but I can detect most people. A lot of the time I don't really know if they're male or female until they start talking, because at that point, I can judge from their voice most of the time. But he had taken time out to literally go and attack a well-documented disability, and then attempt to literally do the whole "it's all in my head" argument. Well, long story short, I wound up going home, and I oh goddamn, I had collapsed in my yard. I was like, oh, evidently this is just mental health related and all this other stuff. I had collapsed in my yard. I was taken to another hospital. They found out that inflammation was raging in my neck, as well as the nerve endings in my skull. And it was causing me to get a pretty good amount of swelling and to black out, and so they wound up sticking me on prednisone to bring the swelling down because my immune system was just fucking pissed. So I went ahead and I was like, oh, okay, let's go ahead and do this. And when I had gone and recovered enough, I went ahead and I had called the hospital and I said, hey, yeah, I would like to file a complaint, please, because this guy was trying to misdiagnose me with a somatoform disorder, and I have been tested for somatoform in the past by my mental health team, and he missed the mark. It wound up being nerve inflammation and a couple of other things, and this is not okay. This could have seriously gotten me killed, or it could have gotten somebody else killed. You guys can't afford to do this, more or less. I was told initially that nobody was in to handle the complaint and that I should call back Monday. So I got up early Monday. My neck was still kind of swollen. And I called back. I was transferred over to somebody that calls himself Dr. Bob and handles these sort of things. I don't know if he's actually a doctor or not. I had no real way to verify. I went ahead, recounted the entire ordeal, went over my records with him and stuff in terms of, the nerve damage, the nerve swelling, and then being blind on top of it. And he was like, well, we take things like this very seriously, and yada yada. Told me that I would receive a notice in the mail saying that the complaint has been lodged, and I was like, okay, that's fine. He openly admitted that he's like, we don't disclose the results. And I said, okay, that's also fine. I just want to make sure it doesn't happen to anybody else, because this could have been somebody's kid, more or less. And so the notice in the mail never arrived. But of course, I had received a call back the same day saying, hey, I can't find your records. It was a little bit weird because at this particular hospital, it's not just a hospital/ER, it's also a lab that does blood work, and it has an imaging lab that does x-rays and MRIs, and it is a very well-equipped hospital. And so he had called me back, and he's like, I can't find your records. I went ahead, gave him my complete name. I gave him my complete date of birth, and I had also given him my old name in case the hospital was still using my dead name for whatever reason, even though I had already transferred it over previously. He said, okay, we'll go ahead and take a look at it. And I said, okay, not a problem. I appreciate your time and your effort. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. The complaint forms had never arrived, and nothing ever came of it. So, as time has gone on, I've just progressively realized that healthcare in America is truly fucking awful. If the lack of accountability does not kill you, the wait times frequently will, Like, it's really just not that great. There's just nothing respectable about it, between doctors being quacks and, nurses having really awful conduct. It really makes you wonder, how do I go and survive in an environment like this? More or less, is it possible to survive in an environment like this? So it's really just kind of an oddball thing, I think, because when you realize that you have an industry that doesn't really want to be held accountable, you realize very quickly that when you do file complaints, doctors, medical staff in general, have a tendency to go and look at you as a problem. Like, literally, they will sit there, they will look at you as a problem, and they will be like, okay, well, this patient has a tendency to file reports and stuff, and everything else, and you more or less have to watch your ass when you're around them. And it was very, very sobering to me, I think. On one end, as a patient, I understand that I have to take care of myself. The advice that I was given at the time is, if you keep having heart issues, just go to the ER, more or less. If you keep collapsing, just go to the ER. But on the other end of things, I find that the quality of care in this nation is so bad that it's in a constant state of degradation. An example of this would be that the number one thing that doctors, medical facilities in general would go and invest in would be people and machines. Literally, people and diagnostic equipment. Nowadays, the number one thing that they invest in, and it's going up all the time, is malpractice insurance. So what does this tell you? And then you go and you look at like the public's generalized trust of the medical industry in general, and it sits at a nice fat 93% of people that do not trust it at all. Another issue with having barriers to care is insurance companies. They are a problem because what'll happen is you'll have a doctor that wants to order like a test, right? Like an MRI or something. They'll have pretty good reasoning. They'll be like, hey, this person's neck is very, very stiff. And when they move their neck, it, appears that, they look like they're being electrocuted. I would like to order an MRI to see if there's compression. A lot of the time is that request will go to insurance companies, and they will have somebody review it who is not a doctor, just a random standby staff member. And a lot of the time, they will not understand if they should deny it or approve it. And it's very, very weird because there's been plenty of times where I've needed really good testing to actually go and diagnose things. Like, for example, I had a blocked renal tube, and they wanted to go and do a CT to see what was going on with it because my body was just, like, really fucking up at the time. And so they had to literally go and work around my insurance, and it literally could have ended way worse than what it did. I actually got very lucky. They were able to get it unblocked, and I was actually able to go and, pee normally and stuff, and as an end result, because my kidneys weren't fucking up all over the place. But, they literally, like, when working with insurance companies, you'll have doctors sometimes that know what it is that they want to do, but insurance companies frequently get in the way by having people that aren't even really qualified to make judgment calls like that, try to make judgment calls like that. So I feel that insurance companies really just need to be kept in check for the most part, like they have to, because, a lot of insurance companies are kind of like, adding to the problem, especially with like vital diagnostic work and stuff that is needed. There's just a lot of problems down here with the medical side of things in general. Like, the entire industry is pretty fucked up. I wouldn't really recommend it to anybody between how insurance companies behave, how doctors behave, just how medical personnel in general behave. It's really just not getting better, I think, and it is kind of degraded to the point where it's like I would rather stay at home, I think, and die from whatever the hell it is that is killing me instead of deal with medical personnel, because a lot of the time they have a tendency to make the problem worse. And a lot of people are going to scream bullshit, and, that's fine. They're welcome to. I had another instance where I had a blocked biliary duct. It had a huge-ass fucking stone in it. Went to the hospital for it. They were like, oh, it's okay, you'll just naturally pass that out. Over the course of 2 days, it got worse. Went to another hospital, found out that it was way too big to pass out, and then had to go and have surgery to go and have that damn thing removed. So it's just really, really weird. I find that getting mental health services in this country is a nightmare because we do not take it seriously at all as a country. Thinking about it now, I don't really think that there are many, if any, countries that actually take mental health seriously. Going and getting the right specialist to go and tackle certain mental health disorders is a nightmare sometimes. But, yeah, I would not... I think I'm very quickly joining the other demographic of people that just does not trust the medical industry at all. I find a lot of tests are over-ordered. For example, I went to go and see my rheumatologist, and I had some old testing done, and by old, I mean I had it done 2 months prior to the appointment, and when I would show up, they'd be like, well, that test doesn't matter. Here, I would like to order another test. And it was just for arthritis in my spine. It's not going to change over 2 months, really. Not enough to really matter, and so I find that even diagnostic work sometimes can be wasteful. I've had other appointments where people get mad if I show up to the appointment understanding exactly what it is that I am looking for. Like, I literally, when I transferred over to a new rheumatologist, I was like, okay, this is what we're working with. I have a lot of lung inflammation, vascular inflammation, and then my spine is so heavily inflamed that the joints are starting to warp. We need to focus on tackling this. What do we do?
What's that?
And a lot of the time when
Calm
you're
down,
dealing
Lee.
with
I'm no
doctors and
zombie.
specialists and stuff,
My name's Carlos.
if you walk
Corporal of
in
Umbrella's
knowing what's going
Biohazard
on,
Countermeasure
they
Force.
hate that
What's
shit.
your name?
Because there's nothing
Jim,
worse, I think,
did you
for
just say
most
you
doctors
belong
than
to
an informed
Umbrella's
patient that actually understands,
We came all the way out
what's
here to save
going
the
on in their
civilians.
body and is looking
But
for
the mission
adequate
went bad
treatment.
the minute we landed.
So we knew that I have a rheumatological disease, and I was just essentially looking for prednisone to go and stop the flare that I was having, and then I was looking for long-term treatment in terms of inhibitors to keep my immune system from eating me alive.
Over here.
My previous rheumatologist had retired, more or less. And so, like, I already knew what was going on. It's just like, hey, I'm looking for continuity of care. And so it gets kind of haphazard after a while.
Are you crazy?
Like if you
You
walk
could've
in
barbecued
with like a
both
sheet
of
of
us.
paper outlining what's going on so you can hit the ground running, they have a tendency to get really pissed with it because it has a tendency to kind of put a little bit of knowledge in your pocket. And so when you're not ignorant, they really just don't care for that. It kind of takes them off of that
I need to
little
ask you
self-worship
something.
pedestal that a lot of them have a
Why
tendency
did
to
Umbrella
have.
send your team
And,
here?
that's just really
Our
shitty, I
mission is
think,
to rescue the
that they
civilians.
kind of walk around with that mentality.
How kind
I've
of
also
you.
seen, like, really weird
Considering
things,
Umbrella
like I've had
caused all this
doctors
in the
freak out
first
in
place,
public
those liars.
because they'll want to be
Look,
referred to
we're
as
just
doctor
mercenaries, hired
in
hands.
public. And I had to deal with an ex-neurologist who had demanded
No time
that,
for talking.
more or less.
If you can believe me, then join
So
us.
I can
Think
understand
about it.
going and referring to somebody as doctor when you're in clinic, right? Like if I'm having an appointment, obviously at that point it makes sense. Or even if I'm setting up an appointment, again, that makes sense. But this guy was so entitled that when I had bumped into him, we were at Olive Garden. I had referred to him. I was like, "Oh, hey, Mr. Brown, how you doing? It's great to see you out here." He had gotten pissed off with it, and he goes, "It's doctor." And I said, "Oh, okay, whatever." I didn't think about it. And he goes, "I am a doctor." I understand the doctors go through like a lot of schooling and stuff, but at the same time, the blanket entitlement that they have of like wanting that recognition 24/7 feels rather narcissistic. And I don't really care for it too much. It just feels really kind of fucked up from the neck up, if you would. So it's something that I've had to literally come to terms with and reconcile on a whole multitude of occasions, and it's really just not great, or at least I don't really feel that it's great. But I wouldn't really recommend medical here in America at all. We are in very, very bad need of reform. I feel that we have been for like a while now. Between the way that people act, how insurance is handled, and, over-ordering tests, under-ordering tests, lack of cohesion, I mean, just like the whole fucking 9 yards. I don't really feel like our medical down here is really doing anything productive for the people that really need it most. I think we need to double down on mental health services, make them more accessible for people that are struggling, and I honestly think that going and constantly blaming everything on people's mental health is just really awful. If you want an example of this, there was a lady that I knew that she was having constant chest pains all the time, and she had gone down to her GP's office. Her GP said, "Oh, it's just depression," and she had passed away 3 weeks later because a hole had developed in her heart. And her heart had spazzed out and she had passed out in her sleep. So it gets truly ridiculous, I think. And so as a end result to this, I just don't really trust medical personnel at all. I don't really have much, if any, respect left for it. And, you know, if there's like nurses or doctors out there and, you know, you're kind of like saying to yourself, well, I'm not like this, that's great. I'm glad you're not like this. You know, this is not how people should be to begin with, but at the same time, when you have issues like this running rampant to the point where it's constantly drawing the public eye, that lets you know that something is wrong and that it should be handled. You know, this is why we have patient protection laws in place that the government has to constantly add to try to make up for this industry's inadequacies. And so the entire experience, I find, has been very shitty. I just haven't. I've had a couple of good providers. My podiatrist is amazing. My therapist is amazing. My GP is amazing, although I can tell that she is sick of my shit. I've had plenty of amazing people, but the problem is not the amazing people. It is the people that are doing so badly that it overshadows everybody else's good work. I find it creates barriers to care. It makes it hard to get a proper diagnosis. It makes it hard to do a lot of things, essentially. You know, I find that there is a lack of compassion, a lack of empathy, a lack of accountability. I mean, it just kind of keeps getting worse, and, you know, I would love to I would love to someday be able to have the ability to go and be able to respect these people again, but, you know, when it's running so rampant, you kind of sit down and you say to yourself, fuck, man, I gotta work with these people, you know, what do I do? You know, you got people on drugs, you've got people that behave like gods, you have people that are literally walking, talking, malpractice suits, more or less. You know, there just really needs to be a large amount of quality control to be exercised, and unfortunately, in this country, money talks and bullshit walks. It's always been like that. You know, I find that it's really weird because Americans go and, well, the medical industry goes and spends 3 times more than I think it's like the next 10 countries combined on medical diagnostic equipment and stuff and various things for the industry, but yet we routinely have the poorest outcomes in terms of like mortality rate. And so you would seriously think with all the money that we're spending that the quality of life would go up, the quality of life expectancy in general would go up as well, but it doesn't. So it's just been kind of one of those shitty things for like a while now, and I've just never really been a fan of it. I find that as this process has gone on, it's impacted the hell out of my mental health. It's become a regular occurrence. When I attend therapy, I am supposed to be talking about subjects like sexual assault, you know, things like that, abuse, neglect. But I find that my mental health life is being eaten up by my medical life now. It's like running so rampant that, you know, I'd go and I'd take an hour a week for myself to work with my therapist on trying to better myself and shit, and I find that my medical life is so damn bad and so fucking dysfunctional that I'm literally not able to move forward in therapy because I have to offlet the stressors from my med life in general. So I've been trying to keep these videos about an hour. We're coming up on the 54-minute marker. I am going to probably pair this dialogue up with another survival horror game. So it's been overdue for a while now, I think. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this side project here. For those that came out, I greatly appreciate it. I'm sorry if I'm sounding a little bit croaky. I'm a little bit tired. Is to be expected with what I'm dealing with and stuff. So for all those that came out, as always, I appreciate your time and your effort. I hope that you're doing well, and until next time, be good to yourselves and each other. Take care.
You're one of the survivors from the rescue team, right? I just ran into your teammate, Carlos.
How did a girl like you manage to survive?
Hey, I'm no ordinary civvy. I'm a member of STARS.
Stars? You mean the RPD Special Force Team?
Hey, is someone wounded back there? Oh, this looks bad.
They're coming. Get ready. Fire. Fire. Stay together.
Calm down. You're safe now. Everything is gonna be okay.
So Jill, did you decide to help us out? It looks like we're the only ones who survived. We should work together.
No, we can't trust her.
Why? But Sergeant, we need her help. Our unit's down to you, me, and Lieutenant Mikhail. That's it. And Mikhail's hurt bad. If we don't cooperate, we won't be walking away from this mission.
Fine. Then let's go over our plan. We're moving to the clock tower area, which is the designated landing zone for the extraction chopper. Once we get there and give the signal, the chopper will fly in and pull us out.
That's a lot of ground to cover. I don't think we can make it on foot.
The main problem we have is that the landing zone is cut off from here by the fire. So we have no choice but to use this cable car to navigate through it. Fortunately, we can also use it as a moving shield to get us through the worst areas.
That works for me. Good plan, sir.
Okay, people, let's get moving.
Jill, put this on. Jill! Hey, the zombies are getting restless.
I know. I can hear them. What's going on?
Jill!
What's wrong?
They're coming! They must have sniffed us out. They know we're here.
Hey, calm down.
Any objections to my playing hero this time?
What are you doing? Carlos!
Eat this! Ah!
Carlos! No!
Relax. I'm not dead yet.
Are you okay?
I'm fine. That hero stuff is harder than it looks. Okay, I'm gonna scrounge up some equipment. There might not be any at our destination.
Wait!
What did you do?
I had no choice. He was about to turn into a zombie. It would have been a threat, so I eliminated it.
But he was still conscious, wasn't he?
He was as good as dead. And it took fewer bullets to kill him now than it would have if he had transformed.
It looks like we're ready to go. Here, take this.
Okay. Nikolai won't be joining us.
I understand. I'll operate the cable car. Let's go. It's looking good. Mikhail!
Mikhail!
Jill! Get out of the cable car, now!
Mikhail, wait, don't!
Get out of here! Hurry! Just a little closer.
Mikhail.
No! The brakes are out!
It's useless. Carlos!
Phew. Well, we both managed to survive. Maybe we can start helping each other again.
Yeah, it's been rough. But we can rest now.
No, we're the only ones left. There's no rest for the wicked. Here's a gift for you.
We're saved. Down here! It's finally over. Huh? No!
Jill! Jill! Hang in there! What have I done? I'm sorry, Jill. Please, wake up! Jill! Jill!
October 1st, night. I woke up to the sound of falling rain. I can't believe I'm still alive. Carlos?
It looks like our roles have been reversed from when we originally met, huh? Don't worry, Jill. This chapel is safe.
I've been infected by the virus, haven't I?
Hey! Take it easy.
I'm okay. Don't feel any pain. But that's what bothers me. If I can't feel anything, then what does that mean?
Don't give up, Jill. I'll take care of you. Whatever you do, don't let that virus beat you.
also appears to be a slight fracture in his right arm just below the elbow. However,
Don't shoot! No! Nikolai? You're still alive?
You saw what happened?
What's going on?
I'm one of the supervisors. That's all you need to know.
Wait! Are you okay?
Yes. Barely. What's going on?
No way! That monster just doesn't give up!
What? I thought we killed that thing!
No, it's been waiting for you!
He's playing with us. Carlos, do you think that it's unstoppable?
No, I don't think so. I'm sorry, Jill, but I've got to go take care of a few things. Oh, and bad news. Nikolai is still alive.
Nikolai? Are you sure?
Yes. I don't know how, but I do know that he is our enemy. Remember, don't trust him.
All supervisors, mission terminated. Return immediately. Repeat. All supervisors return immediately. Over.
I'm quite impressed you've managed to stay alive up until now.
And you seem to be doing a pretty good job of looking out for yourself. How about helping out?
I have no intention of helping you.
Because we're nothing but pawns in all this?
In a manner of speaking, you are. Our employers wanted a detailed analysis of the zombie beings which were created through infection by the T-virus.
You're saying that they deliberately sent in a military unit to be butchered by their creations?
Not exactly. Although the conditions encountered on this operation were extreme, it was an unexpected outcome that the team would be wiped out. We were only required to collect live data from the subjects.
Ah!
Another mutant!
What's going on? Whoa! Oh. What is that? Carlos.
Jill, listen very carefully. They're planning on launching a missile directly into the city as soon as day breaks. The explosion will be powerful enough to destroy everything.
Are you sure about that?
Positive. I heard it straight from a supervisor.
They'll go this far to cover their tracks?
Come on, we have to hurry. There isn't much time left.
You're still wandering around.
Nikolai? So, you want to get out of here alone? Is that your plan?
I made certain none of the other supervisors survived. Since I'll be the only one who knows what really happened, I'll have more bargaining power when it comes to discussing my bonus.
Then why kill me? I'm not on their payroll.
They want you eliminated for reasons of their own. The amount is modest, but there is a reward to be claimed upon the confirmation of your death.
That's great. Except I have no intention of contributing to your retirement fund.
Warning. Proceeding with operation in treatment room. Please evacuate immediately. Stars.
Warning. Missile attack confirmed. All personnel evacuate immediately.
Jill, where are you? If you can hear this transmission, respond immediately.
I'm here. What's up?
I got us a ride. The chopper engines are running and ready to go.
On my way.
The city's about to become ground zero. Hurry up! And don't forget to take that device with you.
What does it do?
That device tracks the distance of the approaching missile. Make sure you bring it with you. Now listen to me. Don't give up. We're both gonna survive this. Just get over here!
Warning. Missile attack confirmed. Warning. Missile attack confirmed. Emergency level D. All personnel evacuate immediately.
Checking system. Checking battery. Warning, there is not enough power to activate the system. connected. Executing quick charge program. Preparing to fire. Warning. System overheating. Entering cooldown mode.
Jill! Over here!
I guess we're all set.
All right then, we're out of here.
Oh no.
It's here. It's time to go.
That's it. I've had it. This time they've been too fun.
And now we have a rather unfortunate turn of events. It seems that the President and the Federal Council have passed judgment over the civilians of Raccoon City. The President and Federal Council have ruled that the Bacillus Terminate operation is the best course of action for this extreme situation, and have since executed. Based on that fact, Raccoon City has been literally wiped off the map. Current reports have the death toll surpassing the 100,000 mark. Our hearts go out to those poor civilians of Raccoon City.